Jolo is a volcanic island in the southwest Philippines and is the primary island of the province of Sulu. It is located in the Sulu archipelago, between Borneo and Mindanao, and has a population of approximately 300,000 people. The island is the location of the Jolo group of volcanoes, and contains numerous volcanic cones and craters, including the active Bugdaho cinder cone. History. After a series of less than successful attempts during the centuries of Spanish rule in the Philippines, Spanish forces captured the city of Jolo, the seat of the Sultan of Sulu, in 1876. On that year, the Spanish launched a massive campaign to occupy Jolo, spurred by the need to curb slave raiding once and for all and worried about the presence of other Western powers in the south. The Spanish made a final bid to consolidate their rule in this southern frontier. On the 21st of February of that year, the Spaniards assembled the largest contingent against Jolo, consisting of 9,000 soldiers, in 11 transports, 11 gunboats, and 11 steamboats. Headed by Admiral José Malcampo, the contingent captured Jolo and established a Spanish settlement with Captain Pascual Cervera appointed to set up a garrison and serve as military governor. He served from March 1876 to December 1876, followed by Brig Gen. José Paulin, Col. Carlos Martinez, Col. Rafael de Rivera, Col. Isidro G. Soto, Col. Eduardo Bremen, Col. Julian Parado, Col. Francisco Castilla, Col. Juan Arelas, Col. Cesar Matos, Gen. Venancio Hernandez and Col. Luis Huerta. The Spaniards were never secure in Jolo, so by 1878 they had fortified Jolo with a perimeter wall and tower gates, built in forts called Puerta Blocos, Puerta España, and Puerta Alfonso XII, and two outer fortifications named Princesa de Asturias and Tor de la Reina. Troops, including a cavalry with its own lieutenant commander, were garrisoned within the protective confine of the walls. From Jolo, in 1880, Col. Rafael Gonzalez de Rivera, who was appointed the governor, dispatched the 6th Regiment to Siazi and Bongao Islands. The Spaniards were not secure in their stronghold because it would be sporadically attacked. On the 22nd of July 1883, it is reported that 3 unnamed Juramentadores succeeded in penetrating the Jolo town plaza and killed 3 Spaniards. The word Juramentador was coined by Spanish Colonel Juan Arelas after witnessing several such acts while serving duty in Jolo garrison. The Spanish and the Sultan of Sulu signed the Spanish Treaty of Peace on July 22, 1878. The Spanish-language version of the treaty gave Spain complete sovereignty over the Sulu archipelago. This includes Bazalan. The Americans arrived in 1899, and by the turn of the century, the Philippine-American War was raging in Luzon. So as not to spread out their forces, the Americans employed the classic divide-and-rule tactic. Initially, Sultan Kiram was disappointed by the handover of control to the Americans and had expected to regain sovereignty over the Sulu archipelago. After the defeat of the Spanish, Bates' main goal, though, was to guarantee the Sultanate's neutrality in the Philippine-American War, and to establish order in Mindanao. After some negotiations, the Bates Treaty was signed. This treaty was based on the earlier Spanish treaty, and it retained the translation discrepancy. The English version described a complete dependency, while the Tausug version described a protectorate. Although the Bates Treaty granted more powers to the Americans than the original Spanish treaty, the treaty was still criticized in America for granting too much autonomy to the Sultan. One particular clause, which recognized the Moro practice of slavery, also raised eyebrows in Washington, D.C. Bates later admitted that the treaty was merely a stopgap measure, signed only to buy time until the war in the North was ended and more forces could be brought to bear in the South. The peace created by the Bates Treaty did not last, however. This became evident when the Muslims repudiated the Moro province, a politico-military government in Mindanao lasting from 1903 to 1914, and the Moro rebellion soon broke out. It is important to note that barely 2 months before the creation of the Moro province, the American colonial government declared and classified all unoccupied lands as public lands. Immediately after the declaration, American investment entered Mindanao and mass migration of Christians was encouraged. Jolo was occupied by the Japanese during World War II. On April 2, 1945, the 2nd Battalion of the U.S. 163rd Regiment, 41st Division landed at Sangasanga and Bongao in the Sulu archipelago, halfway between the island of Borneo and the Philippines. A week later, the other 2 battalions of the regiment left Mindanao and landed at Jolo, where they began fighting their way up heavily defended Mount Tahoe, the highest point on the island. The Sultan of Jolo, Muhammad Jan al-Abirin II, leader of the archipelago's 300,000 Muslims, welcomed Col. William J. Maroney, commander of the 163rd, and promised to help rid the island of Japanese. In 3 weeks of combat, the 163rd suffered 37 dead and 191 wounded. Approximately 2,600 Japanese troops were killed, and only 87 Japanese soldiers were captured or surrendered on Jolo. Local fighters killed many Japanese stragglers hiding in the jungle after the Imperial Army surrendered in August 1945. Fighting on the island flared up again in February 2005 when between 4,000 and 5,000 Philippine troops clashed with around 800 Islamist militants from the Abu Sayyaf group, along with followers of Nur Masuari. Up to 12,000 people were thought to have fled the fighting. Fighting is still continuing today.